Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight in our news.
The acting head of the Customs Department defends that department over that Fyre Festival documentary.
Workers at Morton Salt are striking.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, Acting Comptroller of Customs Department Dr. Janine Moss is defending the government agency in light of a controversial accusation made during a recently released Netflix documentary on the doomed Fyre Festival. Dr. Moss today insisting not only did the Customs Department collect all tariffs relating to the April festival, she also slammed Bahamians for jumping to conclusions and helping destroy the reputation of an upstanding customs officer who she says has given decades of stellar service to the department. Jasmine Brown reports.
The acting customs controller not only defended the department and its officers, she also revealed that all revenue has been collected from Fyre Festival duties. Dr. Moss was adamant in her defense of that customs officer who was implicated in that Netflix documentary. She insisted that too many Bahamians still suffer from the black crab syndrome.
What was very disappointing was that Bahamians in general, rather than stand up and say, who is this foreign entity, right? Blackening the eye of the government, government officials, custom officials, ministers of government, social media, decided to cannibalize the officer and also the members of parliament, current and former. And I think that we go right back to the black crab syndrome of pulling one another down. I didn't hear anybody pulling down that documentary or, demonizing Netflix or Andy King or anybody else.
In the Netflix documentary Fyre, the Greatest Party That Never Happened, Andy King claimed, I had the head of the Bahamian Tourism Board, the Minister of Finance, and the head of the University of the Bahamas waiting for $1 million that they wanted to be paid. Earlier this week, the University of the Bahamas denied claims that UB President Dr. Rodney Smith was in any way involved in the failed Fyre Festival. King also said he was asked to perform sexual favors on a customs officer in exchange for the release of imported avian water, which had an import fee of $175,000. King said while he was prepared to carry out the act, he did not do so, as the customs officer in question agreed to release the water and collect payment later. But Moss swiftly came to the officer's defense.
The officer in question is a veteran of some 34 years, and he has served through many islands in the Bahamas. All the island persons know him very well. There's never been any kind of scandal on his professional or personal life. And I think that's grossly unfair of how social media took a hold of that to the extent that they even put somebody's picture there and purported it to be him. And it wasn't. Okay? He's an upstanding, fine officer in this department.
Fyre Festival was scheduled to take place first on Norman's Key and then on Great Exuma over 2 weekends in April and May of 2017. When hundreds of tourists arrived on the site expecting to participate in a once-in-a-lifetime musical experience on the islands of the Exumas, they were shocked to find that nothing was in place for a concert of that scale that was advertised. Competing documentaries released by Hulu and Netflix renewed interest in the festival, bringing attention to a scheme that defrauded investors of huge sums of money and left hundreds of festival attendees stranded after the event's abrupt cancellation. As for the collection of customs duties for items imported for the Fyre Festival, Moss said all of the taxes were collected.
All the goods that came in, the water and all of that stuff, the duty was collected to the tune of some $175,000 or so. The balance of the equipment did not leave. We had some businesses in the States who owned the equipment. They were able to come forward, pay the outstanding temporary import fees, and those goods were returned.
Moss also confirmed that last summer the Customs Department auctioned off items that were seized after not being paid for. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Industrial action is looming in Inagua. Jillian Gray tells us that workers at Morton Salt are preparing to strike due to an impasse in negotiations with their employers.
After nearly a year of negotiations, workers at Morton Salt say they are now at a standstill as it relates to negotiating a new industrial agreement. Armed with a strike certificate, they are now ready to take action.
No matter what, we got to stand up. Jennifer, you guys have the strike, strike. Simple. You have your certificate, tell your members, call them today, let them know to get ready.
Yes, to the officers here and myself, that a strike is inevitable. The workers will have to take the necessary actions needed.
Negotiations for a new agreement began on February 7, 2018. After months of failed negotiations, the union took a strike vote in November and was granted a strike certificate. The union says it initially proposed an 8% increase in wages, but decreased that to 4% halfway through negotiations. Based on inflation, the union says workers should receive at the very least 3.4%, not the ludicrous 1.5% the company is offering.
What the company is offering is totally unacceptable. In March of 2018, the company's offer for the wage package was 1.5% March 2018, 1.5% 2019, 1.5% 2020. 5 months later, at the meeting held yesterday, the company's offer is 1.5% 2018, 1.5% 2019, and 1.72 March 2020.
Before they left Inagua, the union president said she and her executives put their members on standby. She promised that a strike could happen within a matter of weeks.
The workers are out there late hours in the night, supervisors home in their bed, but at the end of the day, when we produce the tonnage, they are the ones that benefit, and the workers get nothing. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Christmas, the production bonus paid out was $237. After making over 1,068,000 tons, the workers made 100. The projected goal was 1,068,000. We did 1,069,000, and it's not even being considered.
In fact, Brown says their wages aren't even comparable with other Morton Salt plants internationally.
They are discriminating against the Inagua plant. All their other plants, the wages highly exceed Inagua employees. They've exceeded the wage. We are now trying to get what the other plants have been getting from 8-10 years ago.
The union is now pleading with the government to step up and help them in their fight.
That's when you have a weak government, and that is exactly what we have here in the Bahamas. And I think that message needs to be understood.
The only thing they've done is arrange a date for us to meet.
For its part, Morton Bahamas said this week that it is committed to maintaining a positive relationship with the workforce and with the union. The company said it's disappointed a deal hasn't been reached, and it plans to continue to bargain in good faith. Now, the union says if all else fails, it will take its fight international in an effort to negotiate what it believes are fair wages. Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
The Bahamas was among those countries that recognized Juan Guaido as interim president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The vote came at a special meeting of the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States held on January 24th amid an ongoing political crisis in that South American country. A statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the decision is consistent with the Bahamas' affirmative voting on previous resolutions and calls for discussions within the OAS regarding the situation in Venezuela, including the January 10, 2019 resolution to not recognize the legitimacy of Nicolas Maduro's presidency. PLP chairman and former Minister of Foreign Affairs Fred Mitchell described the move as an extraordinary and precedent-setting step to delegitimize the government of another country. Mitchell added that this is not a question of whether or not we like the government of Venezuela, but rather do we no longer stand for the non-interference with the internal affairs of another country. Royal Bahamas Defence Force Commodore Tellis Bethel confirming today that the force is continuing the search for the wreckage of a small plane that crashed off New Providence last November. Bethel says despite the crash occurring more than 2 months ago, Defence Force officers on patrol in the area of the crash site are still actively looking for any sign of wreckage.
Ordinarily, the search would have been concluded, but it's a unique situation concerning his case in that we patrol that area daily, and so our persons are still on the lookout for any debris. So in effect, it would have been ended, but we still have people patrolling the area, so why not look out for any debris and any evidence of the aircraft.
On November 8th, Byron Ferguson's plane, a 6-seater Piper Aztec, crashed in waters 2 nautical miles from Lyndon Pinley International Airport, authorities said. He remains missing. Early on in the search and rescue efforts, the RBDF dive team, assisted by the police, conducted several dives near the crash site. In the hours after the crash, officials spotted debris suspected to be from the aircraft. However, when they returned to the site the next morning, they were unable to find the wreckage. But officials have been criticized by Ferguson's family over their handling of the investigation from the start. Last month, a group of volunteer divers discovered portions of what is believed to be the plane. Bethel said yesterday no new debris has been brought to his attention and he hasn't been made aware of any in the past since the early stages of this investigation.
There's been no new findings whatsoever, none whatsoever.
Still to come on our news, the ground breaks on a new development on Paradise Island, and we've got much more when our news returns.